Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Around the Corner series, where we will discuss the latest scientific discoveries, technological advances, and what is around the corner, and what is about to come in terms of innovation in advanced materials, and the trends and the new needs that are going to be resurfacing as a result of this pandemic. Today with me, I have my good friend, Dr. Kari Hjelt, the head of innovation at Graphene Flagship. Kari, welcome. I'm so glad to have you. Are you wearing your red pants?
Well, they're like a Schrodinger's red pants, so maybe I am, maybe not. I'm not going to show.
Well, we can imagine all that you're wearing your iconic red pants. It's really great to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So I am really excited to hear from your own words. How do you describe yourself? Who are you? Tell us a little bit about Kari. Your progression. I know you've been a scientist and then you've dived into industry. Just tell us the whole big picture.
Yeah. I'm a bit of a jack of all trades. Long time in my life, I thought I'm a scientist. So I did all the things, my PhD, postdoc, whatnot. Then I sort of thought that, okay, I'm an industrialist and entrepreneur at some point. Then I discovered that I'm neither of those, but I'm something mostly like between of those two. So that has actually then more or less framed my work life, that I'm trying to, I understand both worlds and try to act as a bridge between the worlds, from science, from researchers to industry. So I think I'm the best there, so as good as I can be. So, but of course I have career in big companies, small companies, from Nokia to startups. So it's all over the place a bit.
And now you're in graphene. What brought you to graphene?
Well, it's like a sort of this great driftwood theory that I was actually leading my last startup, and then I was having a very good summer between the jobs, as they say, very long summer. And then I started to be restless and think what to do next. And this just happened to somehow find my attention, this job in the Graphene Flagship. And I caught it immediately. That might be interesting, because what I want to do is to have some impact. You know, it's just not the work, but something that I can see that my work has sort of impact in the larger context. So coming from the startup, it's a small world. I wanted to be, again, in the bigger environment.
That is fascinating, this theory of being a driftwood, and we've talked about this before, how it actually opens up many different opportunities for us. Well, it's great to have you. You've made significant impact in the graphene world. And now we're dealing with this pandemic. And I remember that from the very early start of this Advanced Material Pandemic Taskforce, which is a nonprofit public interest global initiative that we put together to address how advanced materials are going to be fitting into this picture, not just for the pandemic phase, but for the world that is being left out and is going to be left behind after this pandemic. All the different needs, innovation trends that are going to be required, how advanced materials fit into this picture, and also how can we use advanced materials to benefit human life. And you are on the steering committee with your position in Sweden. So how do you see this pandemic task force providing benefit? Why do you think we need such a global effort to be able to address and fast track?
Yeah, it's like connecting the dots again in something that I feel important, that I can have an impact for, is creating this connection between the real world and the needs of the industries and people, and the academic people and the researchers and the great minds. So that's what I'm doing. The Graphene Flagship also is trying to connect these two ends, sort of customers or the industry needs and the researchers. I think this work that the Advanced Materials Pandemic Taskforce partially does is to find sort of some kind of sort of connection between the needs of the industry and the great research and understanding of different materials. And since this is like a set of new needs, because it's just born out of the new pandemic, there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of sort of chaos in the field. So people are seeking solutions, but they don't know how to reach those solutions. And I think advanced materials actually can provide a lot of answers to those questions.
And graphene is a part of the advanced material community. What other advanced materials do you think we have that can be as a part of this solution set?
Yeah, of course, graphene is just a very small part. Then going a little bit larger, it's everything 2D, all the 2D materials, new surfaces and coatings and these kind of things are very interesting. But also we have to go further than that. So anything that is like a new modern material that needs a lot of work to do the job that is supposed to do, like very advanced silicon technologies and sensors still are advanced material, very advanced actually. That this is the most advanced material field that there is. So for example, different sensors utilized in silicon technologies fall into these categories. We have a lot of composites that fall in these categories and so forth. So this is not just graphene for sure. This is much broader and in many layers of the onion.
That I completely agree. I think there are many different advanced materials. And what most people do not realize is that now, these days, in this century, we actually have this capability of engineering these materials, using them as Lego sets, basically pieces of Legos that we can actually build different things with. And in this regard, we're looking at this problem that we have in front of us, and we're saying, how can we use our materials to benefit society and the needs of the post-pandemic world? So that is very exciting. And you and I have been talking in the past few months about everything that you read. I have not seen a single person that reads as much as you do about this pandemic and has this kind of extensive knowledge about things that are not related to the advanced material side of it, science side of it, but kind of you keeping in touch and with the trends, with the information from vaccines to the medicines to even the national agendas of different countries. I know that I come to you sometimes and say, Kari, what's going on? Because I don't have time to read the news. Just tell me what's going on. What are you seeing? And where are we right now? And right now it's June. It's been months. Where are we right now in terms of development? How do you see? And I know that neither of us are experts. We're both physicists, right? So neither of us are experts in this field. But I really want to get your opinion about what you're reading in terms of where we're heading. Any information that would be helping somebody like us not to have to spend hours and hours every day reading the news.
Yeah. First, thanks for this trust in my professionalness in this subject. Yeah, I mean, of course, we are not specialists. That's good to know. But I did spend quite a lot of late nights, very late nights, studying all these things and reading all possible things. Even I followed all possible Congress hearings in the US.
You're probably the only person that does this, Kari. Seriously, people in the US don't listen to this.
Very interesting, and also of course, I followed everything that happens in China, Europe, Finland, and Sweden especially. It's very interesting to follow the different opinions of the officials, for example, and the health officials. It gives me also some kind of overview on the things that are needed in the future, because I've seen that some things work, some things don't work, and people do things very hastily sometimes. They sort of figure out in panic, okay, we must do this. But what are actually the actions that are long-lasting and bring benefit for the societies? I think this is the major question. Mm-hmm. So let's say that my opinion, personal opinion, is that this is to stay, this pandemic, for some time. It's not going over, even though we would have a vaccine, which is maybe coming by the end of the year. Maybe more people get it in by the beginning of the next year. But even that doesn't resolve the game, because the vaccines you don't know how good immunity they give. They might give partial immunity, and we don't know who the immunity is actually working for. Is it working for all the people or some group of the people? Mm-hmm. So the vaccine might be more effective for young people than old, for example. So that's always the problem with the vaccine. And how long is the immunity? That's another question. It might last 6 months. It might last a year, 1.5 years. Nobody knows. So this is the problem, and that's why I would say that this is by no means over. This will be with us, like I would say, some years to come at least. Maybe not as bad as now, but it will be there around. So that's sort of it's not pessimistic. I would say that it's a realistic worldview. So what it tells to me that we have to find like new medicines to ease out people and also prevent deaths, of course. But then we have to invent new ways of acting in the society. And I think there actually what we can help from our part. I mean, there's a lot of working groups like this. Graphene Flagship has their own working group in the COVID-19, concentrating on this pandemic, more or less. But there's a lot of working groups, but we are rather large working group. At least we want to be large. We will be large in the advanced materials. And these solutions are needed in many areas. Let's talk about mobility of people, like when they go to work and back, and how they communicate, how they interact with the spaces. So user experiences, for example. So do you touch surfaces? How do you communicate with the environment, your space, your house, your working space, your office, and your computer? All these things are actually going to have an impact how we live in the future. I think that's an important factor. The other one is communication. So even helping telecommunication solutions like we are having now, how they can be even better. So of course this is not advanced materials, but we can partially help there because, for example, we can make faster optical networks with advanced materials. It's a very complex problem, and there's many areas that we can affect. We don't know yet. So that's actually the part of the game which is interesting to me. So we are now in the phase of gathering the knowledge and understanding how we can tie these two ends together, the needs, and figure out the needs of the future, and then what is the possibility of the materials.
This is fascinating. I mean, it is really, the future looks grim, but at the same time, when we have this opportunity right now in front of us that we can use to innovate, because there's a whole new set of needs that is in front of us, and the world is really changing. And there is going to be, for example, months and months ago, we didn't have this need for having these Zoom meetings, right? So a lot of us have bought better cameras. A lot of us have probably purchased perhaps better internet connection or better microphones. And each of these needs are going to be connected to the materials that build them. So it is going to be enabling us to make better cameras, better sensors, better broadband connection, for example, faster telecommunication, and that might become the norm. And it is, as you mentioned, it is fascinating because necessity is a mother of invention, right? We have the necessity right now, and it's amazing to see with the tools that we have in our disposal, what can we do and how it's going to be helping us.
Yeah, so, I always say that the two things that gets technology forward is laziness and necessity.
I like that. And tell me what you're seeing, right? You're based in Sweden. Sweden took such a different approach. Tell me about what you're seeing around yourself in terms of interaction of people around you, going back to workplace. What are you seeing, and what kind of innovation is Sweden actually implementing to make this transition faster, easier, and healthier for people?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the issues here is that we were never forced to do anything. It was just more or less like requests or like soft kind of rules that, okay, you should do this and you should do this. So very few things were forbidden. So people were supposed to take the responsibility by themselves. Some schools were closed, like for all the pupils, but the younger children went to school all the time. So that was one interesting experiment. Does the school actually act as a vector for infections? And
does it?
Looks like that. Well, it looks like it doesn't really. That's so the young people, they are not so infectious. I mean, some, but much less infectious than they are in other influenza type of diseases, for example. So this is good, of course. So the young people are much less infectious when they got the disease, and they get very mild disease. So the mildness of the disease and how infectious you are, they go hand in hand. So if you have very serious disease, then you also excrete more of the virus naturally. So in that sense, it's a very interesting experiment. At the same time, Sweden is Scandinavian society who has a lot of experience in remote working anyhow. So people are very able to work from remotely from home. Then one thing that is also specific in this society is that people are living quite sparsely. So there's not too many cities that are big. So we are already socially distancing in our habits as well. We are maybe not so like warm, if you could say, like in some other countries.
Are you stereotyping?
Yeah. This is true. So it's a social habits. I think there's many things that are working for one country, but they are not working for another country. So it's difficult to compare. But I would just say at the same time that the experience is still going on. We don't know what is the end result. Mm-hmm. So there's still a lot of disease in Sweden and a lot of deaths happening every day. So it's not catastrophic and it's getting less and less, but it's interesting to follow. People are living almost like it would be normal. You know, it's people are, you don't see the disease in too much. It's people are a little bit more careful, but society is working all the time.
That is fascinating to me because I saw your picture, you would be sharing pictures, and I saw your picture going out to restaurants and everything, and that was like a month or two ago, and I was telling you, Kari, where's your mask? And you said, well, we don't wear masks here. And it's interesting to watch the trends and kind of the solution kit that different countries are implementing for this and how they have different results. We're seeing a lot right now. We're seeing some of this in the past few days. I'm seeing notice of perhaps another outbreak or the second wave of this. What are you reading? And this is just for my own curiosity because I don't want to go and read everything. What are you reading about this the second wave? Is it coming? We thought it was going to be coming much later.
Yeah, I mean, this is still the first wave, unfortunately.
So okay, we're not there yet then.
It is just our system is trying to adjust the number of the infections. So we talk about how many people you infect. One person who was sick, how many people does this person infect? If this number is over 1, of course, you get more and more people who are infected. At the moment, it has been less than 1, so one person infects less than one person on average, so it has been going down. But as soon as you start to open the society and not caring, then it starts to go up. And this is already seen in, I think, 22 states in the US has this now increasing number of cases again. So you cannot let go. You have to be on your toes all the time. So this is still the first wave. The second wave probably comes some months later. We don't know how hard it will be. Nobody knows. But we will not have a lot of immunity to battle it. So that was one of the thinkings in the beginning, that if we had the first wave and we can ride it right so that we don't overcome the hospital system by too many cases and sick people, we just stay below it, but we get rather large number of people anyhow, so we sort of could have some immunity in the society. But even Sweden has like a bit over 10% of the people who have had the disease, not more. So, I mean, still the immunity is not there. I think New York City is a good example of a place where the immunity starts to begin to be there, because more than 22% of the people in New York had the disease already.
That is a large number.
Yeah, 22%. So there, the next wave will be not so hard because people know how to behave and they already have partial immunity. That already affects, for sure. But all the other places, there's no immunity, so it can begin as bad as it was in the beginning when it comes again. So you have to be very careful.
Our lives are going to be so different. I mean, the other day, you and I were talking about the conferences that we usually go to. I mean, the Graphene Flagship conference, all the other kind of profession-based conferences, events, etc., that we are used to going, communicating, collaborating. That's our base of basically meeting and having those kind of discussions. None of those things seem, with this kind of a thread on the line for the longest time to come, none of those things seem to have be an option anymore. So how do you see our conference of the future? How do you think the materials that we work with are going to be perhaps a help in terms of us going back to our normal routine of having events, having, for example, sports, any of gatherings, musical events, etc.? What can we do in the advanced material community, or what do you see that we can do to help?
There's a lot, of course, and
Tell me about them.
I really want to go to conferences as well, because I'm a bit tired. Even I'm living in Sweden still, I've been quite careful. So not too much going out. I miss the conferences for sure. I think everybody does, because nothing beats to see people face to face for sure. Yeah, what can we do? I mean, there's a lot of things. We can begin with the surface and coatings type of solutions. So one way of getting the virus, whatever virus, is by the surfaces. The people cough or secretes the virus, and then it goes on the surfaces, and then you touch the surfaces, then you touch your face, and that's it. That's one way of getting it. So different surfaces have very different time how long the virus can survive. For example, this COVID-19, actually SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus, the time that it can survive on average on copper is like some hours. On cardboard, maybe a day or something. And on hard plastic or metal, maybe up to 5-7 days even. So it depends on the surface, and also depends if it's outside or inside and what's the temperature and so forth. So outside it dies in some minutes with a strong ultraviolet light. So what we can do is to develop for example, surfaces that kill the bacteria fast, the viruses faster. I mean, it could be also bacteria in the future. So either one. So, and those we know that, for example, in graphene, we can make already surfaces that kill bacteria, for example. But okay, viruses are more difficult. But it could be non-habiting surface for viruses that they don't want to live there. So they die faster. They dry out and die faster. This is a very plausible scenario that we are going to work. Then, of course, all kinds of different shields and ways of having the social distancing, like face masks or these work. It's very simple, but we can maybe have more advanced ones and also different kind of shielding options that you sort of isolate yourself a little bit more efficiently. But of course, it can be in the communication systems. It can be in different ways. We make the new materials that make our communication easier, even when we are face to face. There's a lot of different options that we can work on, and I'm sort of enthusiastic about this work because I can now start looking what could we actually do, what are the needs, and what can we do there. So I'm sure that there will be plenty from the communication to materials and everything between.
So in your opinion, and also based on the experience that you've had over years of taking materials from the lab to the market, okay, imagine now we have all these different groups of fantastic work that is being done on the antiviral surfaces with graphene, with copper, with nanocopper, etc. How long does it take in a base case scenario for us to actually see these solutions come to the market, and what can we do to fast track it, because we really need these solutions right now. Yes, it is great to have them as a part of the AMPT, Advanced Material Pandemic Taskforce. We're putting together this roadmap of saying, when are these solutions coming to the market? How can we fast track them? But it's also really good for us to know what is really not going to make it for this one in the next few years, so that we do not put all of our resources into it. We look at it as a solution for perhaps the next pandemic, but let's focus on the ones where we can actually bring to the market as fast as possible so we can have an impact. Tell us a little bit about that transition from the lab prototype to the market, to the mass production of something that has advanced material components into it, and how long it takes.
It depends very heavily on the industry. I mean, as I'm working with the graphene mostly, so we have very, very different industry areas. So the maturity of graphene in those industry areas is very different. So it's the way to roadmap and the product in those businesses. So there's no one answer fits all for sure. We can begin with some simple examples like a new face mask materials. This is low-hanging fruit, and graphene can play a part in there. But then again, is it really needed? Because there's so many other competing technologies on this one. So this is a good question, and it's very fast. But I would say to this that in a way we are not in a hurry to figure out something, because this situation will last a long time that we have the needs. It's a post-pandemic world. So even though this will go over, we have to be more prepared for these kind of things to happen, because they are happening more and more often. Just for the reason that the people are more engaged, too close to the nature and too close to the animals in many ways that are not supposed to be there. Let's leave it there. We have so many people in the world, so we cannot escape this ever-increasing frequency of the pandemic. So this will stay there for a long time. So some solutions, even though they are far away, it's worth pursuing for, because the need will be there for sure. So let's say, for example, a new sensor. So if you would like to deliver a new silicon sensor, for example, this kind of solution measure some biochemical marker of the COVID. So it depends, of course, if you're using existing platform or not. But if you develop something totally new, it will take years to reach the market.
Yes.
Even with silicon. It sounds pessimistic. I say again, it's realistic. I used to work at Nokia, and that was one of the fastest R&D cycles there at the time for the mobile phones. And that cycle, getting something on the roadmap and getting that in the product, was about 18 months. But that was already utilizing the world's largest platform on that end. So basically, if you have a startup doing something with a new material, it's a long way, usually. Of course, there can be some very simple components that you can deliver to existing system. But if you have to deliver the whole system, it takes time. That's the point.
Yeah, and it is realistic. It takes a long time. One of the reasons why we created this task force was to see where can we fast track. If we all come to the table from the international aspect, bring all the resources and knowledge together, can we fast track this? And we're already having these conversations about the regulatory acceptance, all of us going after the compliance, of us going after the standards, for example, or streamlining the supply chain, and being able to fast track some of these elements. It is really going to be helpful for us, but it is also important for us to be very realistic about the fact that usually the time to market for something like this is long. But also let's keep in mind that this is a very new situation and everybody is so motivated, and perhaps some parts of the bureaucracy that we're seeing, the guidelines that we used to have to follow, they're breaking down a bit. So we're seeing much faster cycles and innovation. So hopefully with the work that we can all do as a part of this, we can fast track some of these very good solutions and we can bring them to the market. And I know that the Graphene Flagship, with this great task force has been started, is a very great component, a piece of this puzzle with all the resources that Graphene Flagship has, and also with all the work that has been getting done, can bring so many of these innovations to the table, and so much of the scientific discovery on that side covered. What are some of those examples that you can tell us from the health side the Graphene Flagship has been? And I know that you guys have started this spearhead projects that were really successful, and you were telling me about one of these examples of this air filters that is being done right now. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's being done with Flagship?
Yeah, very shortly. One good example is that we have a spearhead that is developing new kinds of air filters together with Lufthansa technologies at the moment. So those air filters are meant to purify the air in the airplanes, and now there's even more increasing need for this kind of air filter for sure, because now everybody wants to have this ultra pure filter there, and graphene can have a specific role there, because you can make very thin structures that you can purify by pyrolysis very fast. So actually, this is a new type of filter that it's very difficult to make within any other material than this kind of a nanomaterial. So this is just an example that suddenly we have a need for this solution that we have thought for one specific industry. There might be a need in these kind of solutions very widely elsewhere. So this is very interesting new market opportunities opening. What other things happens in the flagship? Of course, there has been a lot of studies about making graphene surfaces that kill bacteria. And this is actually, there's some prototypes on that one. So they can kill bacteria in different hospital environments and tubes, for example. Sort of antiviral surfaces, antibacterial surfaces. That's what we are studying. And of course, how to design all these, as we mentioned, these disposable masks and aprons and wearable clothing and so these kind of things. And of course, then how to detect the virus. So this is one of the big things. So how to detect the virus very fast. So that could be a game changer. If you can detect the virus like instantly when you get off the airplane or before you get the airplane. So that would actually change a lot of things, even before you come to conference. But the conference pass would be then just given to you if you are free of this virus.
The virus, then we would make all the travel and we'll get there and they would say, nope, sorry, you're sick now. You can't come in here.
Better that than
that make the other people sick. Absolutely, yes. And this is just a few examples of what we can do with these materials, and this has created a need for us to come together even faster and better to be able to put together these solutions on a global platform. And you know what? As you were talking, I had so many other questions about vaccines and, I don't know, immunity and herd immunity. I know we've talked about this so much, but I know we don't have the time. So I was actually thinking, how about we have a very quick kind of 10-minute chat between the two of us once in a while, just we can go over some of the things that you've learned new or what is being covered right now in the news, what is the latest development, not in advanced materials, but the other side of it, which usually people from advanced materials don't get to be exposed to. So that we can talk about that, and it will be just the way that usually I pick up the phone and say, Kari, what's going on today? So we can have that. What do you think about us doing a series like that?
It's great, and 10 minutes is just good for a cup of coffee and exchanging the information. So,
maybe we actually make it, maybe we make it like a coffee break kind of thing, a coffee break chat. I like that. Let's do it.
Or beer.
Okay, well, we'll stick to coffee for now. Well, Kari, it was such a pleasure talking to you, and I really appreciate all the work that you're doing, not only with Graphene Flagship, but also with the Pandemic Taskforce that we put together. And before I let you go, I want to ask you, what are you cooking tonight? You look so surprised I'm asking you this.
Yeah. Tonight, there's two alternatives. I think it goes in this order. Tonight, we are going to have Swedish meatballs.
Oh gosh, okay. So yes, what was I expecting?
Tomorrow is going to be the Midsummer Festival, and then everybody is sort of it's a holiday for everybody here. So then we have probably, as the tradition goes, like new potatoes and some herrings. So those kind of very traditional. Like
I can see that. So what you're cooking tonight, what goes with your meatball? Besides the meatball, come on, tell me about the Swedish meatball thing. Is this the same thing we get in IKEA?
Yeah, but that is a much better version. So yeah, basically it's of course a secret recipe.
Oh, secret? Is it your recipe? You're not Swedish.
Exactly. Yeah, maybe, yeah. IKEA actually published that receipt on the net, so it's not secret.
Oh wow,
anymore.
Okay, it's not a secret. We all can make it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kari. Again, thanks for sharing what you're eating tonight. I'm very excited about that.
Okay.
Well, I will keep in touch, and maybe we can actually do those 10-minute series, and our viewers will be enjoying that as well. Thank you so much, Kari, and have a great.